Example, learn from wisdom. I'm extremely proud to tell you that this is our fourth episode in our series after three enlightening episodes. I would like to thank all our teachers, especially Mr. Mallikarjuna Rao sir and Arvind Babu sir. I would also like to thank our President Satvika, Vice President Ananya, and to the entire core committee members for organizing this event, which is helping students to gain insights on what they want to achieve. With this, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Ms. Deepika Reddy Baddam, who graduated this year and received admits from prestigious universities like Duke and Ivy League Dartmouth for pursuing her Masters in Engineering Management program. She played a vital role in developing indigenous ventilators for COVID-19 at Apollo Computing Labs. She grew from joining as a to becoming the Joint Secretary in Road Rat Club, Hyderabad. She worked as the Vice President of ESEL and she is a national level motorcycle racer. We are proud to tell you that she was the President of IEEE CBIT for the year 2021. We are privileged to have you here, Deepika.
Thank you so much, Ravan. That was a wonderful introduction.
First and foremost, a hearty congratulations to you for your first podium in the national championship held last year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
From hosting last year's masterclass to being invited as one of our guest speakers, you had an incredible journey. How do you feel about it?
Honestly, it's very surreal because last year around this time, me and Pavan and our entire team started Masterclass. And to see you guys do this and take it so far, I'm extremely proud of the entire team and IEEE. And yeah, I feel really glad to be a part of it now.
Yeah. Before getting into technical aspects, how has your quarantine been so far?
It has been good. It was quite hectic actually. I'm working from home and I've been traveling from Hyderabad to Chennai for my races back to back. And I've had a stressful month so far, but of course, the win made it all worth it now. But yeah, it's good.
Um, could you tell us what exactly MEM is and how it is different from MBA?
Yeah. So MEM, as we all know, it's Masters in Engineering Management, and MBA is Masters in Business Administration. So many people get confused between these two things and how one can replace one another. But honestly, you cannot replace an MEM with an MBA. So first of all, MBA, for MEM, you need a STEM course. That is, you need to be an engineering graduate or you need to have a math background. Whereas for MBA, you don't need any technical background as such. So this is the primary difference between an MEM and an MBA. And for you to get into a top-notch MBA, you need a solid work experience. Okay, you need at least 3 to 4 years of experience. On the other hand, MEM needs only 1 to 2 years of work experience. So MEM, you aim for techno-managerial roles like project management, product management, something like that. And when it comes to MBA, these are completely managerial roles, and people who have studied BCom or commerce or any field can actually apply for an MBA. Whereas only engineers or people with a strong mathematical background can actually apply for an MEM. So this is the major difference, and why engineers it's preferred for them to take MEM is once you graduate as an MEM student, you get a 3 years OPT. That is, you get 3 years time to work. Whereas in MBA, once you graduate, you only get 1 year of 1 year of OPT. So this makes it like that is why MEM is preferred, because you get a better ROI, you get better return of investment, because the amount of money you shed into MEM and MBA, it's a lot. MBA, it's double the cost of an MEM. And after that, at least getting 3 years of work experience, you can get back all the investment that you've made. So for these reasons, I think MEM is mostly chosen by engineers, and MBA is good if you have a lot of work experience, definitely not for people like us with no work experience or 1 to 2 years of work experience.
That was really great knowing the difference between those two, and a lot of people might understand the difference now. And could you tell us about what like the colleges offering MEM, different colleges offering MEM?
Yeah. So MEM is actually a growing degree now. It's not as famous as other degrees like, CS or computer engineering or anything else. So that is why it is very important for us to make sure that we apply only to the best universities for MEM. So there are only a few universities that offer good MEM courses. So there's no point of going to any other university other than these top 10 universities. I mean, I'll tell you roughly the names of these universities. So first is MIT, but MIT needs at least 3 to 4 years of work experience. And then there's Dartmouth, there's Duke, there's Cornell, there's New York University, there's NEU, Northeastern University, Northwestern University, there's Tufts, and of course there's Purdue. Purdue is also really good. So these universities offers the best MEM programs, and it's only worth going to MEM if you're going into these top universities, because even if you go to anything else, the job opportunities are not that great and the course is not great because it's still growing. So yes.
That was a really great insight. Uh, what are the step-by-steps you followed to get into Dartmouth University?
Okay. So usually everyone starts applying at the time of I think November, December. So by September, I finished my GRE and IELTS, and I started preparing for my SOP, LORs, everything else. So MEM is a techno managerial subject. So that is why we have to make sure that in our LORs, we need 2 academic LORs and we need 1 professional LOR. So this is what is normally recommended because we have management side of it in our course. So if you think about it, then you take professional. Since we are in 4th year, we have to take LORs from our internships. So I took one LOR from my internship and 2 academic LORs, and I finished that by I think October or November. Meanwhile, I was also working on all the other essays. So the thing here is each college has a different SOP. So some ask you for SOP, some have a word limit, some don't have a word limit. Example, Duke does not have an SOP. It has questions. It has 3 questions and you need to answer them in the form of essays in one single page. So first of all, what you need to do is first shortlist your universities and then open a portal and open your account, and then you see all the prerequisites that are needed. Like some of them have essays, some of them have additional essays as well. Like for Dartmouth, the SOP had no word limit, but they also had an additional essay. So first of all, you need to open an account in every college, and then you see the prerequisites, and then you start planning for it. So I finished trimming all my essays by I think November or December, and then I applied by Jan. So mostly the deadlines are over by Jan 15th. So we have to make sure that we finish everything else by Jan. So that was how I applied.
Generally, it is said that getting into MEM is preferred after working for a year or two. And what
Yeah.
made you apply MEM even after you got placed?
Okay, so I wanted to do MEM ever since 2nd year. So even if when I got in, I wanted to see my chances in an MEM program. So I wanted to give it a shot. Of course, I didn't think that I would get into the universities that I dreamt of, but that was a chance that I took. And also MEM, not necessarily, you don't need to have work experience for MEM, but if you have work experience, it's an added advantage because you get better placement offers after your graduation. So that is the main reason why people work for a year or two and then apply for an MEM. Nevertheless, it's still okay if you don't have work experience also.
Yeah. And are you setting off Dartmouth this fall, or are you deferring it for next year based on the current situation?
Actually, the current situation is not bad, but because of a few reasons, I've decided to defer my admission. Also, some colleges don't allow deferment. Luckily for me, Dartmouth and Duke had deferment options, so I deferred my admission.
Which branches are most preferred for MEM?
Okay, that's a very good question. So many people think that only CSC students or IT students can actually apply for MEM. But honestly, mechanical and production students have the most advantage in while applying for MEM. So this is because their courses have subjects like supply chain management, operations management, Six Sigma, all of these which are actually related to the MEM course itself. So when you can put these things in your SOP and in your projects, it is an added advantage. However, the one advantage for MEM is that it does not really have any particular branch specific thing. You can apply, even if you're CS, you can apply EC, you can mechanical production, any branch can apply as long as you have a good reason for wanting an MEM. That is what they look for.
That was really very informative. And selecting the right college would be the toughest task, right? And what were the considerable factors that helped you choose Dartmouth or Duke?
Okay, that's a very good question. So for me, I researched a lot about every university, and it all came down for to Dartmouth and Duke. And of course, Duke is really good. I almost thought I would go to Duke, but then the first interview invite I got was from Dartmouth, which I didn't expect at all. So I'll tell you the major differences between Duke and Dartmouth. So Duke has a class size of 50 students, so it's extremely selective, and this is the reason why most people get rejected, because no one can expect or no one can predict who actually can get into Dartmouth. Even if you have the finest profile, you still don't know if you can make it or not. And Duke has a class size of around 150 to 200, so there's a better chance of you getting into Duke. And also Duke has a it has a good stream, like you can get into analytics, you can get into consulting, project management. There's a wide scope for that. Dartmouth has a specific, it's more inclined towards project management, supply chain management, product management, etc. So depending on what you want to choose, you have to choose your universities. So for me, I felt like Dartmouth would be the right fit for me, because first I got a 40% scholarship. Second, the student and professor ratio is really good. Since there are only 50 students, you can focus more on things that you want, and you can have direct interaction with professors. So that is what made me choose Dartmouth. And of course, the placements are also really good in Dartmouth. They're also good in Duke. In fact, the location in Duke is really nice, and Dartmouth, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's okay. So yeah.
So, as you have mentioned about scholarships, like universities like Duke and Dartmouth are very expensive. And how do they provide these scholarships, and what is the procedure to apply for it?
Okay, so you have to check for each university, because some universities don't offer scholarships. Some universities offer scholarships, and some have third-party scholarships as well. For Dartmouth, I had a third-party scholarship, and we have to apply it while we're applying for the university. So I did that, and when you apply for it and when you get in, you get around 20 to 40% financial aid, depending upon your profile. And coming to Duke, I don't think it has any scholarship, but I think other colleges do. So you'll have to do some research before you actually apply. Some universities have, but some universities don't.
Uh, that was really great. Like most of us want to know the what are the job prospects of MEM. How do they get, like what kind of jobs they get after completing MEM?
Correct. So once you're a CS grad, the kind of opportunities that you have are very less. Like you're a software engineer or you have two other roles. But in MEM, you have a varied crowd and you can choose your own track. So the probable roles for an MEM student vary from a product manager, a project manager, to a data analyst, a business analyst, a marketing analyst, or even supply chain management, project manager, all these. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to choose from. So once you get into MEM, you need to choose a particular track. Let it be analytics, let it be management. So depending on that, you can study the courses that you want to and apply for the jobs that you are fit for. So in your class, like I think in Dartmouth or anywhere, each class will have varied kind of students who are applying for, who are looking for various other things. Some might be interested in analytics, some might be interested in product management, and some other might be interested in starting a startup. So it has like a very diverse kind of students. So that's one advantage for MEM. You can choose what you want to take.
Uh, Primarily, what should be your focus area when applying for MEM? For masters, GPA is considered as important. Like, what exactly considered as important for MEM?
Okay, there's not one thing that's important at all. There are various other things. Now, this is a techno-managerial thing, right? It's a techno-managerial course. So they see a lot other things other than your GPA. So first thing, of course, is your GPA and your GRE. That's number one. So you make sure that you have a good GPA, and if you don't, or if you're lacking there, make sure that your GRE is good enough so that you can balance it. So this is the first thing that's important, but it does not mean that if you have an extraordinary GPA, you're gonna get in. Because I've seen people with extraordinary GPA still getting like waitlisted or not getting accepted into Dartmouth or anything else. So it really depends on various other things. So first one is of course GPA and GRE. Make sure that you have a decent GRE. If you already have a very good GPA, that is like an 8.5 plus. If you don't, then compensate it in your GRE. And the other thing that is most important in MEM at least is your leadership roles. I wouldn't say that being a president of a club will help you, but it's the work that you do and the experience that you get from a particular role that will actually help you. Because these things you can talk about them in your SOP, you can talk about them in your interview. So these things will actually make you stand out amongst other people who probably don't have these. So since it's a managerial course, they look for leadership roles, they look for good projects, and they see how you can handle pressure and all these things. So an MEM will see your profile in every way, not only just GPA or GRE.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Everyone should mark it. And like, where did you do your core internships and projects, and how did they assist you choose your career?
Okay. That's a nice one. So I think during COVID, I got two internships. The first one was through our college. I got a marketing analyst role in a startup. That really helped me a lot. Like I worked for 2 months, I think March and April, of course online, but I got a lot of exposure. And I think during that internship is when I realized that I really want to do MEM, because I really liked what I was working for. And after that, I worked for an international company for another marketing role. So I worked for two marketing roles because I wanted to get that exposure to see if I really like that side, the management side of things. And I realized that I actually do. And then I think in June or July, I started working for another core company, which was manufacturing ventilators. And during that phase, I didn't only work through the technical aspects, but I was also there throughout the project. I was like monitoring the project and how the project goes about. So I learned a lot during that, and I could use that experience in my SOP, in my interview and everything else, and that helped me a lot. So I would definitely say that you need to get at least one or two core internships so that you can understand if this is what you want to do, and also you'll have something to talk about in your SOP or in your interview. And also if most people don't know about this, MEM has interviews. Like for masters in computer science, etc., you won't have interviews. Once you apply, you either get in or you get rejected. But for MEM, some universities have interviews. So once you qualify, once they like your profile, they send you an interview invite. And then you have an interview for half an hour. This is for Duke, this is for Dartmouth, Purdue, and Columbia. Once you get that, and once you do well in the interview, then they select you. And the chances of getting in through the interview is like 50%. Like it's not at all predicted. If the interview goes well, of course, you're going to get in. Because, yeah.
As you have also mentioned about a profile, like how should an ideal profile look like? Like what was the key part in your profile which helped you stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, a key, I won't say there's anything like an ideal profile, but for any good profile, for you to apply for masters, you need to have at least two good projects. You need to have a decent GPA, a decent GRE, and you need to have, I won't say you need to have 3, 4 internships, that does not matter. Have one solid internship that you can talk about that gives you proper experience. So that is extremely important. And apart from that, in US, people, I mean, they consider a lot of extracurricular activities. So being a part of clubs is a major plus point. So don't be a part of clubs for the sake of it. Only be a part of it if you can contribute to it and gain something out of it. Only then it's worth it. Otherwise, it's not really worth it at all. So having all these things will make you stand out. and any other extracurricular activities. It could be you being a singer or having a musical, any background. For me, being a motorcycle racer has somewhat helped me. Like, I wouldn't say it helped me get an admit, but during the interview, I had something to talk about, something that I was passionate about other than my studies. So anything that you're doing, it's about the way you put it across and the way you communicate it to them that matters.
Like you were part of ESL and IEEE, right? How did you use these two clubs in your SOP, and how did you talk about this in your interview?
Okay. So IEEE, I've been a part of it since 2 years, and we've done like quite some good workshops, and we started the masterclass last year. So these are the things that I spoke about during my interview. So basically, the fact that I learned a lot while I was a part of IEEE. So, dividing the team into different all these departments like publicity, marketing, and how we made a single event happen. All these things will help you. So this exposure that I've gained through IEEE helped me, and this is what I put across in my SOP and also in my interview. And similarly with EDC, we conduct Impresario every year. So in my third year, I think in March, we conducted an Impresario event where we got Upasana Kamineni and like very good speakers. So while organizing that, I learned a lot, like how we need to approach sponsors, how we need to put across our event, how we need to attract people towards a particular event. So these are the things that I learned. I was in the publicity department that time. So all these things that I've learned actually added up, and I could actually bring out a story which I put across in my SOP and also in my interview.
Like a lot of us is asking to follow up the procedure you have followed for, like you have followed to apply for MEM in US, like any other program other than MEM also. Like, is there any particular procedure to follow?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you repeat that?
Like, what are the steps involved in admission process of any MEM program in US?
Okay. Okay. So first thing, you apply for a university. Some universities have video questions apart from an interview. While you're applying, when you're sending in your SOP, your LOR, there's another section where you have to record yourself for a minute, and you get a question prompt and you need to answer it in 30 seconds. And you need to record yourself for a minute, and you get only two chances. This is one of the I won't say most important, but this is also a part of the process. So you get three chances, and you have to make sure that you talk properly, because that is also a deciding factor for you. I mean, depending on that, if it goes well and if your SOP, everything is good, then you get an interview call. So interview call is after the entire process of video questions, SOP, and all that. And once you get there, you get to have an interview with a professor or an MEM person for half an hour. So they ask you various things. You can never predict the questions that they can ask, but it can range from why MEM, why this particular university, why do you want to, I mean, why do you want to do an MEM without any work experience? Tell me about your projects. Tell me about your leadership qualities. How has it helped you? And they can also put you under pressure and ask you various other questions. So you get half an hour, and you have to be confident and talk about everything, and depends on the particular interviewer. Some people make you feel comfortable, some try to wantedly put you under pressure, but at all times you need to make sure that you are clear about what you're talking, and you should be sure that you have goals, and you should mention that I need MEM to do this, and this is why I think your course is perfect for me. So that is the ultimate thing that they expect from us. They want you to know that you have to do this so that you get into the particular course.
Like most of the students are juniors for us right now, and
Correct.
they don't know what to choose, like what to, even if they are not good at coding skills and all, they might feel very low. Like, what suggestions you would give to them?
Yeah, that's a good one because being an EC student, I've also faced this a lot because I think most of us EC and all the other branches except for IT and CSE struggle with this. All I'd say is don't come under pressure and don't think that you really need a software engineering role or you need a placement in your software role because of peer pressure. It's okay if you like coding, it's great, but if you don't, if you want to stick to your core domain, you should, even if it's hard, like even if you don't find jobs, you can try and eventually I'm sure you'll find internships. So don't just go to the software side of things because of peer pressure. Even in chemical, I've seen so many people who don't like coding, but they got into it because of peer pressure and because they just needed a placement. So don't do that. I think take time to figure out what you want to do. Even if it takes time, it's okay. Like there's no rush at all. Figure out if you want to do a management related course or if you want to stick to your core domain or if you want any kind of coding. I'm not saying coding is wrong. I'm just saying that if you don't want to do it, don't do it under pressure. Like it's okay, you there are so many other jobs, you just have to wait. Of course, in our college, I think 90% of the placements are software related, and that puts you in a lot of pressure. So that is what you shouldn't get into at all. If you want to do it, you should, but if you don't want to, then try for other alternatives. I think fourth year is the time, third year especially, is the time where you explore various things to know what you want to do. Maybe you want to do masters, maybe you want to do MEM, and also MBA. Also, there's ISB, there's ISB deferred MBA program. So there's so many things. So you need to open doors and see various other opportunities that you have, and not just stick to coding or anything else for the sake of it.
That was really inspiring. Like most of us will connect to this question.
Yeah.
And then getting back to our discussion, does MEM accept GMAT?
GMAT. No, MEM accepts GRE only. However, MBA accepts both GRE and GMAT. So if you're confused between MEM and MBA, I would suggest write GRE so that it's valid for both. But if you want to stick to MBA, do not write GRE. And if you want to stick to MEM, write GRE.
Like most of us struggle during communicating with others, and how did that help you in compared to others?
I mean, honestly, even I had that problem initially, and that is why people be are part of clubs and all that, because you get to communicate with people who have a similar mindset, and you get to know a lot about each other and you get to communicate effectively. I've seen so many people in CBIT who are very scared of communicating, but once they start talking, they're good. So it's something that is in your head. Once you get out of your comfort zone, you're fine. And to get out of your comfort zone is why you need to be part of clubs. People don't just say be part of clubs for the sake of it. It is for a reason, because you learn a lot. The exposure, the experience that you get through clubs, I don't think you can get it through anything in college. And just sticking to subjects and classes is good, but it won't develop your overall personality. So if you want that, then you need to be a part of one or two clubs, not many, something that interests, something that aligns with your interests. So that is what you should look for.
And being a you have been inspiring a lot of dreamers who are thinking to step out of their comfort zone and achieve something great. Like being a motorcycle racer, how did you manage your academics and your passion towards racing and MEM?
Okay. So for me, I wanted to do an MEM since second year, and my racing journey has started around actually in third year, I think in fourth year, honestly. Last year, 2020. So at that time, I didn't have any problem, but during November, December, it was a little difficult because I had to manage my college and my races and my traveling and everything else. But I think if you love something, then you will find a way to do it. So I think if you have something you're passionate about, it's not like if you like one thing you can't do another. For me, I'm equally passionate about MEM and racing. So I don't see a problem doing both at all. So it's about how you prioritize your things and do it. That's it.
Like even then we prioritize, we somehow fail to do both at a time, right? Like
Yeah.
is there any phase you face the situation?
I mean, thankfully, I didn't because for me, my racing career started in fourth year when there was online classes. So I had enough time to do this parallelly with that. If I had college, I think in March when we had college, it was a little difficult for me to travel and then get back to classes and studies. But I think it wasn't that bad for me at least because I didn't have that clash at a point.
Like getting back to our previous discussion, how exactly do you approach an SOP? What steps should we follow to write a good SOP?
Okay. So I've seen multiple SOPs actually. So SOP is a statement of purpose of why you want to get into a particular university for a particular course. So this thing is should be very clear for everyone. I've seen many people write very generic stuff about themselves, like I have helped a dog, I've fed a dog in a street and it taught me a lot. So these things might help you in undergrad, but they do not in masters. In masters, they don't look for these kind of things. They look for a story. They look for all the things that you did that led you to want to pursue masters in a particular field. So for MEM or anything, you need to make sure that you divide your SOP and convey everything. You need to convey your leadership skills and your club roles. You need to put your projects and internships. And in the end, you need to combine all your experiences and tell them why your particular master's degree is the right fit for me. So for that, you need to make sure that you are writing your own SOP. This is one thing that I will stress a lot. Many people ask me the kind of consultancies that people look for. Consultancies are good for helping you and for guiding you to write your SOP, but ultimately you need to write your SOP so that yours is different, because when you go through a consultancy, you see that most SOPs are very similar, and of course they see hundreds of SOPs. They'll easily figure out if you wrote it or if you didn't. So you have to make sure that yours is unique in your own way. I'm sure you have a story that no one else has, so you have to put it across. So that is one thing, that is one major thing that many people go wrong with SOPs. It's one of the most important decision making factor in our profile. We can't change our GPA. We can't change our GPA after a point of time. We can't change our projects after August or September. But one thing that is in our hands is SOP, and that is where we tell our passion for the particular course, for a particular subject. So that is where you put all in and make sure that you give your best there.
That was really stressful. Stressful in the sense we need to stress on it, like preparing our own SOP. It will help us a lot when compared to others and standing out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And while coming to internships, it's hard to get internships in core fields. And how do you think we can get core internships off campus?
Yeah, I think core internships are really very difficult. And one thing that helped me throughout was LinkedIn. So please, if you are not on LinkedIn already, create an account, because LinkedIn has given so many opportunities for so many of my friends also for various internships. So create a LinkedIn account and try to send in your resumes to hundreds of companies, because we don't know what might happen. So all you can do is just give your best. It takes 2 minutes to actually upload a resume to a particular company. And in LinkedIn, you get many options for your particular role, and just send in your resumes everywhere. And you will definitely get at least one reply back and you will get an internship. It's just that you need to have that never give up attitude when it comes to applying for internships. So just give in your resume in every role that you think you might fit in, and wait until they reply back.
Like since you said that there were different questions you were asked for your admission in Duke and Dartmouth, right? And could you give us an idea of what questions you were asked?
You mean in the interview?
Yeah, in the interview, and even like you applied for Duke. Is there anything they asked for you to beforehand?
Okay, so Dartmouth didn't have video questions. Duke had video questions. So since they had video questions, they already know a little bit of you. So Duke's interview was a little less intense if you compare it with the Dartmouth interview. At least for me, I had my Duke interview for 15 minutes, while on the other hand, I had my Dartmouth interview for almost 35 minutes. So there was a lot of discussion in my Dartmouth interview, but the Duke interview was a little very quick. Like they asked me why I wanted. These are the typical questions. Okay, why MEM? Why Duke? What do you think you can do? What do you want to do after your studies? What makes you think that you can actually pull off an MEM degree? So these are things that both of them have asked. And coming to Dartmouth, they asked me different questions like, how did this project help you? Tell me something that you're passionate about, which is not just studies or anything else. So these are the things that Dartmouth asked me. So we can never predict interview questions, but we just have to be prepared for the best. They will not grind you and give you tough questions and put you into pressure. They will ask you questions that you can answer. It's just that you need to be clear about your goals. MEM, I think only MEM makes sure that they take in students who have particular goals, because it's a management related course, and people, there are many people who want to do MEM for the sake of it. So when you're doing that in the interview, you will get caught. You need to have a goal to want to do an MEM. So that is what they look for in an interview.
Okay, what are here is a question from audience. Like, what are some good consultancy services we can consider if we are applying abroad? Did you go through any of them?
Okay, firstly, I would say don't go to any consultancy. If you want help for SOPs and LORs, you can go for Gradvine or anything like that. But I'm talking about consultancies that apply for you. Please don't do that. I think the least you should do is make sure you apply for yourself, because it's not hard at all. They make it look like a big deal, but it's not. You just have to create an account and upload your SOP, LOR, write down information about you. It will not take more than, I think, 2-3 hours for each college. So don't go to any consultancy. If you need help for SOP and LOR, definitely you can take consultancy help. What I did personally was I approached MEM seniors through LinkedIn, and they helped me with my SOP and my LOR. They helped me trim it, and I worked with them together. So you can probably talk to seniors who have already been admitted at the universities that you want, and you can take help from them. I think most people really are helpful that way. And if you think I want a more professional way of approach, then you can probably go to a consultancy. You can take help for SOP and LORs, but make sure you write it on your own. And also, when you're applying, apply on your own. This is a big suggestion that I'll give. It's a little time consuming, and you need to know a little bit. But once you do it, you will be the sole. There's no one to blame. I've seen one of my friend who took a consultancy, and they didn't apply for the university at the right time, so she didn't get an admit or something happened like that. So when something like that happened, you are gonna blame someone else. So you don't want that, right? So make sure that you do everything on your own, so that you have no one to blame. So yeah.
Yeah, that was really nice. And we have few more questions from audience. Let me read them. So, what according to you is a good choice to work and then go out for masters, or move out as soon as you get a degree? Uh, this was already discussed. Can you sum it up for them?
I would say that having experience helps you any day. And if you're going for a core degree, then maybe experience doesn't help you. But for a managerial role, getting that corporate experience will always help. If you don't want experience, I won't force you. But if you can get experience, if you have an opportunity, I would say work for a year or two, and then go for MEM or MBA, because that time when you study all these subjects, they will make more sense to you. So that is why they say MBA has 3-4 years of experience compulsory for a reason. That's because it makes sense for you to study that after you get some exposure. So if you have the opportunity, definitely work for a year or two. Otherwise, it's okay. It's okay if you don't. And if you have your goals clear, then it's okay if you don't work as well.
What's the major difference between MS and MEM?
MS, uh, Okay, so masters, this is a particular core subject, right? So there's a masters in CS, masters in EC, masters in various other, so many fields. So that is completely different from masters in engineering management. This is completely managerial plus technical oriented. All others, MS are mostly they're technical oriented. So that's the primary difference between an MEM and an MS.
There's another question. What are the ideal GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS scores for getting into MEM?
Okay.
Could you share your profile?
Yeah. So for me, when I would say that there is no such ideal profile. It's about balancing out. Okay. If you have a very good GRE, you can balance, if you can have a decent GRE score and it's fine. And coming to IELTS, first of all, it's just an English test. They will not want you to get a 9 on 9. That does not affect at all. But again, you need to have a minimum score of like 7.5 plus. I had a 7.5 in my IELTS and my GRE was 330 plus. That was because my GPA was on the lower side. I had a 7.7 when I applied for my master's for MEM. That was when I think in 3.2. I applied in 4.1, so I didn't have my score that time. So if you have an 8 plus score, then a 320 GRE is good. But if you have a 7, 7.5, I would say push a little more for your GRE so that you can compensate that. So basically, GRE and GPA is like a gateway. So if you open the doors, only then they will check your SOPLR and everything else. So make sure you have a decent GRE or a GPA. Make sure you compensate. That's one thing I would suggest.
You are part of Rotaract Club also, right? Of
Yeah, yeah.
Hyderabad. How did it help you in this?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that it helped me with my admission at all. I did that out of wanting to do it, but there is no way that it actually helped me in any way. So that's what I'm saying. Having extracurricular activities is for yourself. It's not that everything you do will actually help you in building your profile. That's not true at all.
Like how should students maintain their social profile, and how should we?
There is no such thing as a social profile.
Okay.
There are many people who say that, I want a certificate, I want an NGO certificate because that will help me for my master's. First of all, no university asks you for certificates. So you do not have to worry about all these things. Just worry about what you want to do. And if you want to do something for yourself, do it. Don't do it for your social profile. That is not going to help. The same thing I would like to stress on clubs as well. Don't be a part of clubs for the sake of it. Be a part only if you're passionate about it and if you want to do something. Only then you can actually show that in your SOP or anything. Just putting a certificate that I was a part of a club will not help you at all. I've seen people who were a part of like 4 or 5 clubs, but they had nothing to talk about in their resume or SOP or anything. So stick to 1 or 2 things. Do not go and do be a part of NGOs for the sake of it. If you want to do, you do it, but it's no way going to help you in your application process.
Here is an off-topic question, just for just for the interaction. How did you get into motorcycle racing?
Okay, that is a very funny question for me. I mean, I think I learned how to ride a bike in like second year, but I did not even know about motorcycle racing at that time. I think in 3-2, that is in 2020, I got a chance from TVS to go for selections, and I went there just to see if I had a chance. I missed Shruti that time, which is a very big deal because no one misses Shruti in college, but I did, and I got selected. That was my first round, and that was where it all started. And that was when I realized that there are so many women out there who are doing so many different things. And I think in round two, they took me to Chennai, which was the first track experience I've had. And that was when I knew that I wanted to do this professionally. Like, as of course, it's not my profession, but I wanted to take it seriously. And after I got selected there, I got a chance to race in December, and after that it kept going on, and I'm here today. So that was how it started for me.
Okay, there's one question. What were the other choices you had from apart from MEM?
Okay, so in second year, I actually wanted to do a master's in embedded systems. That time, I was actually not very sure about what I wanted to do. Initially, this was, but then after talking to a lot of seniors, I spoke to a senior who was doing masters in embedded systems. I spoke to another person who was doing masters in engineering management, and after seeing all the pros and cons of everything, I realized that MEM is the right fit for me. Maybe if I wasn't MEM, then I would choose something like maybe computer engineering. I'm not sure. I think I always had a clear vision that I wanted to do an MEM from second year.
Uh, it was really great that having a vision from second year and then getting into it successfully.
I mean, that is actually very difficult, honestly. I think this happened when I failed in 2-1. That was my first subject that I failed. Had a supply, and that was when I started to think about everything that I was doing, and I started to retrospect my entire life. So that was when I wanted to have clear goals for everything. So I started talking to my seniors. I wanted to know what are the fields that I'm, and I freaked out a lot because that was my first, supply, and I thought I wouldn't get into any university because people said that if you get a supply you can't. But it's okay if you get a supply, guys. It's okay as long as you don't do that again and maintain a good GPA. So I think that was one factor that helped me. After that supply, my life changed a lot because I started to think properly and do everything like in, yeah. So that was how it happened.
Like you've been into so many multitasking activities. Like, how do you manage time?
Okay, so firstly, I joined IEEE and EDC and every other. I think I've only been in two clubs. That is also in second year. In 2-2, I joined IEEE. EDC, I joined in 3-2. So I was only sticking to one club. So I didn't have any problem. For me, my clear goal was focus on IEEE. That is the only club that matters, and then my studies. That's what I thought. And then eventually in 3-2, I also got to know about EDC. So from first year and second year, I didn't do anything in clubs. So that was completely off. I mean, I don't know how I got into clubs, but I think I was very passionate about it. I think this started because of my uncle. He told me about IEEE and he asked me to join. So I joined because of him. But once I joined, I got to know so much and I knew the potential that the club had. So that was what made me, take it far. And coming to, handling everything together. I think studies, you won't need 100% of your time. You can allocate enough time for your club and your studies. It's not like you have to work for a club 24/7. No one did that. So it's about, progressing, and it's about making sure you give enough time to each. During exams, I wouldn't think about my clubs. Like, we would make sure that we allocate time in a way that everyone gets time to study and also gets time to work and get experience.
That was really an inspiring thing. And here is another question. What is the importance of publishing a research paper to get into a top university? Like, what is the role of publishing a research paper?
Okay, so publishing a research paper will say a lot about you. It will say that it will give the other person the impression that you have a strong foundation in a particular course, right? Coming to an MEM, it might not help you that much because MEM does not look for a particular what do you call particular course. So it's a management related course. If you're applying for, say, data analytics or machine learning, writing papers will help you a lot because that is the subject, and writing a paper in that subject will directly affect your admission. But in MEM, I think research papers will not help you that much, but it's always good if you have them as well. But if you're applying for MS and if you know what course you want to get into, and if you write a paper in that course, then it's definitely going to help you a lot.
There is another question. Is it okay to have paper published in some local international journal, or it won't have any impact?
Uh, Local journal is not preferred and international journal is preferred. So make sure that you get a good international journal. I wouldn't say only IEEE. You can get in there are various other international journals, but try to get an international journal because that will have more value. And I think IEEE getting into getting an IEEE publication is extremely difficult. You need to have a strong skill set in that particular domain, and you need to know what you're writing, have proper results, and it's going to take like 6 months of time. So if you have the time, if you're in third year or second year, it's time that you work on your IEEE papers. But otherwise, any international journal is a good way to go.
That was really nice. And how exactly does MEM differ from MIM, as both of them have same course duration?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
How exactly does MEM differ from MIM, as the course duration is remains same?
Okay. So as I mentioned in the beginning, MIM is very closely related to an MBA. MIM is Masters in Management. It has nothing related to technical background at all. It's completely management related. You can say that MBA and MEM are very similar. But coming to an MEM, it's a techno-managerial role. You need a technical skill set along with the management kind of a position. So these are completely different. MIM and MEM are not similar at all. If you're interested in core, in a technical background and you want to have a managerial role, then MEM is right for you. If you want to stick to marketing, finance, advertising, starting a startup, anything, I would say MBA or MIM is good for you. Only if you have some interest in technical background, like it might be ML, it might be analytics, it might be anything. But as long as it's technical, only then MEM is gonna be the right fit for you.
What exactly is your personal interest in core, and what did you choose for specialization?
Yeah, for me, I am more into project management. So that is what I am into. And of course, once you go there, also you can change, like there is data analytics, there's machine learning and all that. But I think I want to stick to project management and supply chain.
We had another question regarding research paper, and
Okay.
they're asking like, how do we approach lecturers to collaborate or mentor us to publish research papers?
Okay. So I would say that every lecturer is always ready to help you. Like in my department, GMR sir and Arvind sir have always been helpful. If you want to write something, you know what you want to write about, they're always ready to guide you. So it's about going there, approaching and talking to them and discussing about the particular subject that you want to write on. And once you discuss on that, I think you can collaborate with the teacher and do it together. So that's what most people do. You need at least the first paper that you write, you need help from your professor or your lecturer. It might be your project mentor, it might be your teacher, labs or anyone somewhere related to the subject, then it's going to help you a lot.
Let us see one more question from here. You were in leadership positions of two clubs at the same time. You
Yeah.
were training with your racing career. Could you share something? How did you manage them? Oh, this was already answered.
Okay.
And then, how do you suggest? Uh, like, how do you suggest whether we should take MEM course or not?
I've already told you that, right? So if you are interested in a technical course and you also want to have a management role, you want to lead a particular project, you want to do something not only in the technical background, but with the product as a whole, then MEM is the right fit for you. If you think I want to manage people, then it is not MEM, it's MBA. If you want to do both, then it's MEM.
I think we are done with the questions.
Okay.
Uh, like, did I miss anything to ask you? Like, or you want to share anything with us?
No, no, I think that's it. I think you covered most of the questions. One thing I would like to say is I've seen a lot of people who are applying for an MEM for the sake of it because it's a trending topic now. Please do enough research and see if it's the right fit for you before you actually apply for it. Don't apply because others think it's cool or because it's a topic that is a lot more spoken nowadays. Nowadays everyone talks about MEM, so don't get into that pressure. First, any time before you're applying, make sure you research about the particular course and see if you're interested. That is one thing I would like to stress on again and again. And also, while you're applying, please do it by yourself, because that is definitely going to show in your profile. You can take help, of course you need help, but don't give the give a responsibility to someone else. Do make sure you're a part of everything that you're doing. So these are two things that I would recommend everyone while applying. And if you want to apply this year, I think now it's the right time for you to start your process, because August is the right time. All the deadlines close in Jan, and we think we can get done in a month, but that's not gonna happen. It's gonna take at least 2 to 3 months for you to apply. If you want to apply strong, if you just want to apply for the sake of it, it'll take a month. But if you want to make sure you give your best, start applying from now onwards. Start working on your SOPs, your LORs, your projects, everything, so that you're done by December. Make sure you finish everything by December. So yeah, that's it.
That was really great to hear this from you. And here is last question for you. How do we actually go about deciding on a final year project which would benefit our profile when we are applying for masters?
Okay, so there are various other factors that are involved here. If you want to apply for an MS, suppose you want to apply for an MS in machine learning, then it's better if you do a course in machine learning. And if you want to apply for an MEM, any project is fine as long as you know what you're doing, and uh, anything is fine. In MEM, you don't have to stick to a particular course. But if you know you want to apply for a computer engineering course, then maybe you can focus on an embedded system project. If you want to do a software master's in software engineering, then you can focus more on those kind of projects. But there's nothing that, if you do these kind of projects, it'll benefit you in your admission. There's nothing like that.
That's really great. And thank you so much for joining us. With that, we have come to an end of our event today. Personally, this was extremely beneficial to me, and I'm sure that everyone watching this might relate and take away a few insights from the experiences you shared. And I would like to thank all the teachers for helping us to conduct this event successfully. And finally, I would like to thank our audience for joining us. And I hope this would really help gain clarity to one's planning to one's planning to pursue MEM. I
Yes.
once again thank you, Deepika, for joining us and answering our questions very patiently.
Thank you, Shravan. Thank you, IEEE, for inviting me. If you have any doubts, or if you want to talk to me about MEM or anything, you can personally reach out to me. I'll drop my email here. So yeah, thank you again. This is such a wonderful platform, and I'm sure everyone is gonna benefit from this.